For many years, Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck were known for their roles in films, not for the bad things they did in private. But 5 years after Bergman's death, he made a confession that shook his image as a clean-cut guy. Things that people said Gregory Peck did to Ingrid Bergman were finally proven true before he died, and they were bad. Not because it was illegal, but because it brought to light a betrayal that changed their lives and the way their names would be remembered. Let us look. Taken aback by more than just the writing, Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman had their first movie together in 1945's Spellbound, a psychological thriller directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Both actors were at important points in their lives and played complicated roles in a movie about memory, lying, and hiding who you are. Off-screen, those themes were showing up in their daily lives in a quiet way. From the outside, Peck and Bergman looked like they were complete pros, but what happened behind the scenes wasn't written in any script. A number of books, including Gregory Peck by Gary Fishgall, say that crew members saw something strange. The stars often showed up to work late, messy, and much closer together than most of their co-stars. One anonymous report said that this made people think that they were involved in more than just rehearsals. They were both married at the time. Bergman wrote to Dr. Petter Lindstrom and Peck wrote to Greta Kukkonen. There was a huge chance of a public scandal. A lot of people didn't like Hollywood in the 1940s. Women stars were supposed to keep their pictures safe at all costs. But what happened between them didn't care about social norms or job risks. It was electric how well their personalities, Dr. Peterson and John Ballantyne, got along. But people started to wonder if that focus was really working. Long L. Oaks were cast behind the camera. During breaks, they didn't talk to anyone else in the group. The themes of repression, secrets, and buried desires in the movie reflected the feelings that were building between them. Years later, Peck would talk about Bergman in a way that suggested more than just respect for her work. He said, "I think you fall a little in love with a woman like Ingrid Bergman. It looks like there's no way to stop it, because she was so pretty and kind. Her face was so beautiful that it took your breath away, and her whole glow was stunning. For the press, it looked like another good pairing on TV. But for people who worked on Spellbound, it was the site of a quiet personal scandal that wouldn't be fully revealed for more than 40 years. Even though rumors were spreading, neither star acknowledged anything, at least not at that time. That's what shocked everyone when Peck later admitted it. He had rejected, dodged, or pushed questions away for years. And when he finally said it was true, he didn't make any excuses. It wasn't just a moment of weakness that made him say it. It was about a relationship he had kept so secret that he almost forgot about it. That's what makes this story so painful. That was not the only thing Gregory Peck did. That's what the story stood for. When public figures and private facts come together, there was a creepy hint that something spellbound would happen. Their love story began on a movie about people who have lost their identities and turned into one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets during its golden age. But just because it was a secret doesn't mean there wasn't betrayal. The marriages they broke up were hidden behind the glamour. The plot of Spellbound was a love story with psychological tension, but the fact behind the scenes was much worse. Before they got together on screen, Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman were involved in more than just sneaky looks and short-lived love. They lied to the families they had worked hard to build and the people who trusted them the most. Kukkonen wasn't from a famous family in Hollywood, but she was always there for him as he rose to fame. It looked like they were living a stable, good life by 1945 when they had one son named Jonathan. For most people, Peck was the picture of moral strength, both on and off the screen. That picture would later be seriously called into question by what he finally admitted before he died. And since 1937, Ingrid Bergman had been married to Dr. Petter Lindstrom. Lindstrom, a neurosurgeon, was very far away from the movie business and stood in stark contrast to Bergman, who was in the center. They had a daughter named Pia who was born in 1938 and always seemed to be getting along with each other. Bergman's success, on the other hand, made Lindstrom's desire for normalcy stronger. The people they lied to weren't weak or broken. They were built on family, faith, and having good reputations that they wanted to keep. Choosing to follow something outside of those ties was a risky move, especially for Bergman, who was a famous leading lady and knew that one mistake could ruin her reputation. She could already feel how the demands of fame and her desire for privacy were clashing with her own, and Peck, who was serious, good-looking, and spiritual, seemed like the perfect way to escape. There was no Hollywood tabloid filler in this. These were two serious people who were married and knew what it meant to be open. Of course, they did act on what Peck would later call a real love during off time while shooting. It wasn't just physical, it was also mental, and it broke two families apart. Things didn't really go their way with Lindstrom and Kukanon. It was taken in secret behind the cover of a professional set. The effects would last for many years. Peck and Greta stayed married until 1955, 10 years after Spellbound, but the cracks were already there. In late that same year, he married writer Veronique Pisani. It was also over for Bergman's marriage by 1950, but her affair with director Roberto Rossellini made it public. It was finally true that Gregory Peck did what people said he did to Ingrid Bergman before he died. But there was more to the impact than just guilt. It ended two marriages that didn't seem like they could be broken before. Not only broken vows were left behind by that event, it was about how two movie stars let their desire win out over their loyalty and didn't tell the truth until years had passed and their lives had changed. There was an affair in Hollywood that no one could see. There have always been rumors in Hollywood, but the supposed affair between Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman was one of the most interesting ones. It wasn't in the news or being chased by photographers. Insiders knew more than words could ever say about what was going on because of crew rumors, studio fears, and strange changes in behavior that no one could explain. The two stars of Spellbound didn't act like they were just working together on set. Biographer Gary Fishgall says that people noticed that Peck and Bergman sometimes arrived late to shooting looking messy and strangely close, but no one was brave enough to question them. What people didn't say often meant more than what they did in a studio society that cared about how things looked. Technicians, helpers, and even cast members were said to have felt the change. Their body language, the fact that they were alone between scenes, and the long, subtle looks that went on for too long all pointed to a private story that was playing out right in front of everyone. But since there was no proof, the rumors stayed just that. Rumors. The studios had every reason to hide the incident. Both artists' careers were at their peak, and how people saw them was very important. In the 1940s, people could be angry about anything, especially if it looked like something was wrong with a woman like Bergman. The business was, they were professionally watched and never caught. Biographers have long talked about how strangely well the affair was kept secret. No letters or photos were found to have been sent or received. Even their best friends didn't seem sure what to do. It was the kind of friendship that could only last by carefully leaving out facts. Still, it left a mark that will be felt for decades. People interviewed Peck in 1987. When asked what really happened in Spellbound, Peck gave the world the most close to a confirmation they would ever get. He said, "All I can say is that I loved her very much. She looked like a beautiful Swedish rose. I was young, she was young." But even then, he didn't give straight details. Instead, he used metaphors and memories to talk instead of confessing. Even though it was a clever trick, it still told the truth. For the most powerful people in Hollywood, it was a known unknown, the kind of secret that wasn't said out loud but was understood. It stayed a mystery because no one really denied it, but no one dared to prove it either. It was finally true that Gregory Peck did what people said he did to Ingrid Bergman before he died, but for most of his life, those rumors stuck around not because they were yelled, but because they were whispered, always gently and just out of reach. It was the ideal story, too private to talk about, too true to ignore, and too well kept to hurt their perfect images, at least until time caught up with them both. Love or lust? Why Ingrid really felt that way. It wasn't just Gregory Peck who left hints. After many years had passed since Spellbound, Ingrid Bergman wrote about her co-star in a way that was different from how most Hollywood stars remember their past. Even though she didn't say that she was having an affair, the way she spoke made it sound like something very important had happened. She wrote that he was huge when she thought about the time they spent together. It was a simple phrase with a lot of meaning packed into it. To look at it, she might have been talking about his actual presence. Peck was very tall, had wide shoulders, and looked like a statue. He was perfect for the lead role. But Bergman, who is known for being precise and quiet in what she says, was referring to something else, how much he affected her. She thought about how calm and strong he was on set and how he could fill a room with his spirit without speaking. She noticed that he was standing in a gentle way, and grace to his moves that made his body look less rough and tough. This wasn't the usual respect between co-stars. People were thinking about a man who had changed them in a quiet but lasting way. Bergman worked with many great actors such as Humphrey Bogart, Cary Grant, and Charles Boyer. They all made people feel something, but Peck did it the most. She said that when she looked at him, she forgot her lines sometimes, and it wasn't because she was nervous, but because she was really moved by the man in front of me. Just that statement suggested there was more going on She talked about an almost holy link that wasn't sexual or flirty, but more of an elusive kind. She wrote that it wasn't love, it was a kind of mental surrender based on respect. Bergman had a daughter, was married, and was trying to find a balance between fame and privacy at the time. Peck was also just married and dealing with the stresses of a rising job. Still, Bergman didn't think a lot about guilt in her later thoughts. They showed respect for someone whose presence made her lose control of her emotions. She also talked about how good Peck was, how he didn't want the attention, and how he carried his fame with humility. She told you not to lie to him. His eyes saw right through you, but not in a way that made you feel naked. Instead, they made you want to be honest. It was finally true that Gregory Peck did what people said he did to Ingrid Bergman before he died, but Bergman had already said enough. She made a picture of a man who came into her life for a short time, but left an emotional scar that was so real that it never fully healed. The years of silence. Why did Peck wait so long? Greg Peck didn't say much about Ingrid Bergman for more than 40 years. Even though there were biographies, theories, and rumors about him for decades, he decided to stay quiet. The quiet wasn't a mistake. It was planned, and it was probably a mix of personal guilt, religious zeal, and the need to keep up a carefully made public image. Peck was very worried about how people saw him. People saw him as the face of morality. Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird is a man with strong morals and values. Away from the camera, he helped Catholic organizations, gave money to religious audio recordings, and as a child, he even thought about becoming a priest. When the cameras stopped rolling, this moral code didn't go away. There were many ways that it set his personal limits even when he didn't follow them. Peck himself said that he was still a practicing Catholic, though not a strict one. He once said, "I'm a Roman Catholic, but I'm not a fanatic. I practice enough to keep the ring." That wry humor hit a problem inside. Being Catholic doesn't allow cheating or divorce, and it doesn't praise bad behavior either. It's possible that Peck's continued involvement with religious groups made him even less likely to tell everyone what had really happened with Bergman. Also, there was the matter of time. Peck had just started a family when Spellbound came out. There was a chance of scandal and personal chaos if the affair had been made public. In old Hollywood, even men's careers were not safe. Bergman was in a much bigger danger. Years later, she would get a lot of bad press for another romance that broke the rules. Peck may have kept the secret because he thought that telling her could hurt her more than it hurt him. Biographies started to hint at the affair, but he tried to avoid it. He didn't give any specifics, spoke in a creative way, and wouldn't say anything directly. His silence added to the mystery. There is also more money in mystery than in truth in Hollywood. But the need for secret was lessened over time. When Bergman died in 1982, the past started to feel less important to me.